can see me. Just getting the bits and bobs set up if you can see me and I can't see you yet, so just bear with me. I'm just checking. I seem to be in there. Good morning. Hope you can hear me okay. Just let me know. I have a mic on because there's obviously workspaces around me, so let me know about the sound and the light and etc. Hopefully everything's okay. There's a few technical gremlins there as I went to go live, as ever. Right. Hello. Right, I'm just going to go into the proper place where I can see all your comments. And I'm just in the process of just adding my own phone in case I need. Morning Helen, morning Amy. Hopefully everybody who is on the live has added StreamYard as you've got to go to the link StreamYard.com/Facebook, I think it is. If anybody's not done it yet, just so that I can see who you are on the live stream. Morning Nadine. Yes, say hello to each other. So if you are coming in on any of these, my next door neighbour's a woodworker, so he's just started sawing, but hopefully we'll be okay because it's very intermittent, but just let me know. You can hear me, that's good, that's good. I've tried to make sure I've got all the bells and whistles, so it should be good. But I'm also adding my phone into the stream as well because I can do close-ups on that. So just bear with me because thinking and doing it at the same time is sometimes a bit challenging. And we'll get cracking. Oh, I better turn myself down. There we go. Let's put it on mute. Is it gone on mute? Still echoing. Mute mic. There we go. Got it. I will add that in when I'm doing something you need to see close up anyway. And do just let me know as well, because this is a good sort of setting up session for... It's still going. Bear with me. Is it going to be quiet now? Okay. Just checking everything works. Why is it still going? I don't actually know how to stop that doing that. I did manage to quieten it down yesterday. Strange. Is it going to stop doing it? Okay, it seems to have stopped doing it now. We'll try and crack on. Helen, I can't see anyone else's comments, only my own. Should I be able to see everyone else's comments? Yes, you should. So you're in the Facebook group on the live. Yeah, okay, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Just double check this because I am using a StreamYard, as I mentioned, and I've used this within my members group where I'm just presenting, and it seems to be fine. So I know Nadine has used it before. Tips, can you and Amy see each other's comments? Just at least chat between you, or see each other's comments at least. If you're not chatting between you. Can you just verify that, and we'll just see if we can make sure that Helen can see what's commenting. Yeah, okay. I wonder if it's. I wonder, are you looking on a mobile phone, Helen? I wonder if that's got a different layout and it doesn't let you see. I'm guessing here because it's coming from StreamYard into Facebook. So we could sort this out because it might be something that somebody else has an issue with. So just, sorry. I'm on delay, so I just watch myself blow my nose. Let's just see if we can sort this out and then we can get cracking and we'll kick off the session. And make sure. Amy says she can see those comments. Are you on your laptop? Ooh. And you're in Facebook in the group. Okay. I'm not entirely sure. There is, at the top, I can see bubbles above my conversation stream in the group that says live chat and your replies. And I wonder if yours is toggled to say your replies. I don't know if you're Windows, Microsoft like me, but there is an option at the top for your replies. And there's something else next to it. Something more like this. So I wonder if it's just to just show yours. Yeah. Okay. See how you get on. I won't read out anything that comes up when I'm talking about it, so don't worry about that. And we will find out, I'm sure. We'll come back to something. And yeah, we'll make a start. So this is by way of an introduction session anyway. So this is a good way for us all to find out where everything is, make sure we've got everything we need. So that's part of what it's about. And then I'll actually go on to my piece and start making a plan of attack. Doing the first steps. When we get, I'll actually start to clean it as well and get it stripped and ready for doing the work next week. So there's going to be 2 of these this week, just to get us going, because there are people on different time scales we're going to do in the evening, and then we'll gauge it from next week. What I usually do on these live courses is do one session as a live demo with questions, and then space it out with a live Q&A later on, so that you've got time to go and do stuff, questions. And it might be that I play as part of that for anybody who's can't watch them live, and then I can be there to answer questions. That could be format. But I'm going to check in with everybody once we're all assembled on Thursday. My mic's going to I can try it without. Let me just check all of the connections up. There's a little bit of a connection there. Let me know how that goes. Do you need me to reiterate any of that? Or was it okay? Got the gist. It's a little bit of a lag for me, so I'm just going to see what you say. Let's just recap. Did you catch what I said? These are the things it's good to iron out, isn't it? And I've got like an extension connection for it, so it just popped out of it. How is it now? I don't want to carry on all the way through. I can try it without the microphone completely. You were lip reading me, Amy, weren't you? Does it not show the captions on the Facebook group? It used to do that live, didn't it? It used to show captions, or maybe it's on the replays. But anyway, that's better for this one. Great. Okay, I'll keep going. Just let me know as we go through, as with everything. Just shout out and let me know. I'll out. Let's see if we've got a second. Think about the cherry if this technically goes down. Anyway, welcome to the first intro session for the Confident Wardrobe Publishing course. This is the session to just get to know each other, get to know our pieces, and come up with maybe just start sort of those initial stages of pulling things apart. And also to make sure that you're all set with where everything is, to find everything, and really don't worry if you're not ready to get started just yet, because this is what this session will help you do. And so you've got to before we actually start getting our hands dirty. But also it's pointing out that it's me that's going to do this every week. So I'm the one that's got to keep moving. You might find that you're busy with things, watch a few sessions, and then you do 2 or 3 stages in a weekend. So don't worry if you're not keeping. It's me that's going to keep this moving and the pace going in order to do the demos each week. So you've got plenty of time to go and get yourself a piece sorted. There is, hopefully you've seen a guide to choosing pieces if you're not sure. Some places to look as well in the resource area. It's in the group as well. But what I'm trying to do is create a resource area that you can go back to and it's more structured. And you'll find things more logical. Whereas the group, the conversation will keep moving and things will get buried as we go along. So I'll put them here to announce them and highlight them as they get added. If you want to get back to anything, recording, and I'll be adding extra information. it's not always clear. Right, let's just take it off for now. And let me know how you go, because it's pretty quiet here today. It's just if I start to move over there and the mic's here. There's two more connectors over here that weren't connected. Should we just try one more time and then we'll get on it? Let me just know how that is. Get it all set up and there's still something goes wrong. Yes, so the resources will build in the courses area on the website over the course. I'll be adding support materials around the things we do, and I want to sort of evolve it as we go along, so that we're doing things step by step, not sort of jumping ahead and getting overwhelmed, and then trying to do things with maybe not support there for it. So we just do it sort of actually together. And so, like I was saying, everything in the group is saying and highlighting things, sharing things going on. So you get the live links for this week and the following one, but you'll find the comprehensive stuff in the actual courses there. Just going back to scoring again, so we'll just see how we get on. But I just want, if you do feel like you're getting behind and you were hoping to sort of work on that, don't feel bad it, because then you might just stop watching it at all. So rather you just watch the sessions, ask questions, got involved, got excited, know what people are doing, even if you haven't got time to do your project. And you might find too much time. You've got a whole day so you can get up and you can do prep work, for example. So don't put that mindset that I've got to do my homework and I'm getting behind, because then it takes the fun out of it and it becomes a chore, and it's working in this profession. You want it to be sure, you want it to be enjoyable. Not now. Oh God. Right, we'll take that off. Okay. Am I back? I can hear myself now. I can hear myself now. Let's just. All right. Isn't it great? I was all organised as well. I was feeling dead smug yesterday because I usually have a lot of problems with lighting in here, but that worked out quite well. And then I was like, right, tested the sound, tested the pictures. At least it's real. This is it's about sort of just going, oh well, whatever, and getting on with it, isn't it? Really, as we'll find as we go along and things trip us up with our pieces, we just got to go, right, I'll fix it, I'll sort it out. Techie gremlins, I know. Well, Jack and Nadine will be well used to me and my technological. I'm quite techie, but there's always, I think when you are a bit techie, that means you do more stuff and you get more stuff that can trip you up. So I was saying about getting behind. And I've actually just clicked the mic on when it's not even connected. That's what I said about talking and doing it at the same time. Please don't worry if you do get behind. I know, we've got professionals here in the group who will be doing other projects. We've got client demands. You've got people with kids. We've got people with jobs outside of, not that furniture professionals aren't real jobs. Don't feel like this is a pressure. This is homework and you must keep up each week. Let me sort of set the pace and carry on what I'm doing. But if you just set aside a day, in 2 weeks' time to do 2 stages, I don't want you feeling guilty. I want you to come to the live session so that you can ask questions of me and you can drill into things you don't understand and really push it, because if you sort of feel bad, you'll stop coming and you'll hide away and you know, it's too easy to buy a course and then not take it, because I am guilty of that. So I just want you to be part of it, you know, get excited, you know, support other people's projects, and then you can get caught up at some point, you know, and you get the time. So don't feel bad. This is, want to have some fun here. Well, I'm glad you can see us now, Helen. That's good. And I apologise about my slightly strange sitting. I've got a table here with my notes on, sort of legs akimbo. Yes, so please just stay with us for as many of the live sessions as you can, or on catch up, just and be around the group and just enjoy what's going on, even if you know, have to catch up with your work. And please ask questions of me. There's no silly questions, as they say. And actually, you probably find somebody else is thinking the same thing and hasn't wanted to ask. And actually, the questions you ask can be really illuminating for people, because it might be something I've not thought to say. So do ask questions. I am tireless in terms of being asked questions and trying to explain things in a better way if you need me to. So just, you know, just go for it. Stick your hand up and, you know, post in the group or what have you. And I will happily try and explain myself a bit better. So we've talked about the course resources. We've got the group for the sort of day-to-day sort of post and what's actually happening, and I'll highlight things and any little extra bits that I'm dropping into the resources area. And then you can go there and you'll see this is why it works on a laptop. It's got a main content area, then it's got a list of stuff down the side. So the modules will all build there, and I'll be adding some more links later from this session, so that you can go off and do bits of research if you want to. So yes, so all the recordings will be in there as we go along, saved for you to go and view, but they will be in here. They'll be in here as soon as the session finishes. So if you are watching this on catch up, you know, you'll be able to find any of the recordings immediately that they've finished in the group. They'll just take me a little bit longer to get them into the recording session because I've got to create them and upload them. So if you want to catch up with something straight away, come to the Facebook group. And if you're looking back for a session, go to the website. Hopefully everybody's managed to get into the members area on the website by now. So yes, as I said, it's going to build bit by bit because I want us to take it step by step through the process. So if you are coming to this later on, try to just do that step as you can, rather than sort of jumping ahead and over planning or overthinking and trying to decide what you're going to do down the line, because these things will often tell us. So kind of let it evolve. We're going to have a loose plan today, but until I've got the actual finish off, you know, you don't really actually 100% know, and you don't actually 100% know which repairs you're going to be happy with. And so it's a bit of a suck it and see. Let's just see how it goes. And this whole course is a bit like that because we're working on real pieces. This is the really good thing about it, I think. I'm not coming at you with planks of wood, and I might do at some point if I want to demonstrate a technique that isn't relevant to my piece, but I'm not coming at you with sort of hypothetical, you know, this is how you wipe it on, this is how you wipe it off. It's a real world scenario. So it's a bit unpredictable, and it means the sessions may, you know, they're loosely organized, but we may have to move some demos about in terms of how long it takes to do something. But that's fine. And I might even add stuff in. If there's something that comes up on your pieces, we can troubleshoot it and we can work out sort of things together. There might be new things to deal with. So we will work on it together. And so that means the timings of these sessions are a little bit loose as well. I've put them in for an hour and a half. They may go a bit longer. Do feel free just to disappear if you're finding it's going on too long, and you can come back to it later. And it might be that I just run out of time and need to move something into another session. So I've just kind of, you know, worked it out as best I can. But like I say, it's a real world. But we'll figure out the things as we go along together. And if you are a professional, as there are people around this group, or if you have done this sort of thing before, I know that you will have ways of doing things. You'll have your own tools, and that's absolutely fine. This is just what works for me. So especially for the beginners, obviously that's really helpful. We'll go through everything step by step. But I suggest everybody should at least sort of go through it step by step, because you'll at least sense check your processes, which does in turn give you confidence, because we work so solo on these projects, and you think, oh, what I was doing was fine, actually. You know, that's great. But you might pick up little nuggets of things that you can add in. And for me, the whole process really adds to the sort of success at the end. A bit like the masking tape sort of idea. It's, you know, it's getting that really good foundation make sure that they get that good result at the end. So we'll go through it all together. Like I said, you can swap in things like when we get to the ways to strip and the finishes. That really might be down a little bit to personal choice, but I will obviously give you insight and pointers to help you if you want to try something different, if you want to choose a different way. And as you might see, there's some people on this course who are also done the furniture upcycling course or in my group, but also are doing the furniture recycling course at the same time. So they've got the painting and the designing techniques alongside. And you might see some of my methods have changed. I might be using this tool, or I might be, using this finish. And that's the nature of the beast. We will all, I think, always want to evolve and improve the way we do things. And so I'm going to be showing you what works for me now. It might change in the future because, that's how we are. And if you've got techniques and you spot something I'm doing, you think, do you know, you should be doing it like this. This is much easier. I'm all ears. It's good to sort of share and, as you say, improve how you do things. So I'm sure that we can do some swaps of techniques and info like that as we go along as well. And I think I just wanted to make a note also about the course title, Confident Woodwork Finishing. And I want to sort of set it out from the get-go that this isn't about everything going perfectly on every project. And, if it doesn't, then you're rubbish. Really, things are going to go wrong or not go to plan, or things will happen. Let's just put it that way, as opposed to things go wrong. Things will happen. And the confident part is about knowing that you can handle it and you can sort it out, because each piece, it's like a person in a way. I think of wood as a bit like skin. We kind of have to work it out as we go along and sort of problem solve. So this course will give you the techniques that you can use to apply to that. But I think it will also give you the understanding to sort of look beyond that, so that when you reach new scenarios, you can kind of logically figure them out for yourself and problem solve. And that's where the confidence comes from, that, not to be fazed by issues and that you can fix it. And my little mantra is everything's fixable. Probably because I make a hell of a lot of mistakes as I'm figuring stuff out, but it's a good one to hang on to. There's a way to fix it. And we just have to kind of, when things go a little bit awry, is right, okay, you maybe walk away, but it's fixable. And together on this course, I want us to troubleshoot those things, because we'll experience so much more together that way than having to go through the process on our own over months and having to work out the hard way. So I think we're ready to get cracking. So as I said, I'm going to start off by assessing my piece, going all over it, and then I'll start sort of dismantling it as well, which will also throw up some things to consider when it comes to starting the actual work and how you go about doing the work. I have also put up the supply list, so that will have the tools that you might find useful. To be honest, when you're starting out, you can manage with all sorts, really. I think my first screwdriver was a butter knife. So, there's all sorts of ways and means. You don't have to spend a lot of money. And actually, most of the tools I'm going to use today, I think are ones that I bought right at the beginning from Wilko, which are in that guide. And they're still going. So, there's you don't have to spend a lot of money to get in there. But if you've got favourite tools, obviously, go for it as well. So first up, I'm going to just have a bit of a look at what wood I've got. Now, looking through what we've got so far from different people on the course, we've got mainly walnuts, I think, and maybe some, I don't know what Nadine's is. We're not quite sure. Got any ideas? So, but I think what I'm going to do is share some resources with you anyway that I use. I don't use them terribly often, because I think mainly in our experience, you're coming across similar kinds of wood. It's unusual to come across something unusual, I suppose. So they would tend to be, from my personal experience, things like walnut, oak, which is the darker oak, and golden oak, teak, and sapele, which is a teak-coloured wood, but it's actually like an African mahogany, which we'll see very shortly. Things like maybe elm, rosewood, not as common, but you might come across them, and things like pine and mahogany, of course. There might be others in there like yew, maple. The maple's yew, probably sort of more sort of later stuff. So you'll find there's sort of commonality of types of wood, but I will share some resources so you can go off and look. And obviously you've got different types of cuts of wood. And I'm not going to go into all that here because, you know, I don't know it all either. I'll go and look up stuff that's new to me to figure out what the grain of something is. But it's worth sort of having a little look at. It's very interesting. Reading about the different cuts of wood, whether it's, you know, a plank cut, which might have the grain sort of very sort of even as you look at it, or quarter sawn, where you might start to see something like stretch marks in the wood, but silvery little lines, which is known, when it's oak, it's known as tiger oak, because you see all these little lines that look like tiger markings. So it's quite fascinating how they cut up the actual wood, and that creates the different patternation of the grain. And then coming to your actual pieces, you might see the same pattern reflected, because they're using very, very thin slices of the wood, the veneer, and they cut it from the same piece. So you can actually use the exact same pattern on your piece of furniture. And I think it's worth saying that veneer is not substandard really in the vintage furniture world for certain. You know, we can get so much more amazing. You can even see it from there, even though I haven't stripped it yet. You can get so much more amazing patternation from using exotic wood veneers, because it's very thin wood. They have to do it as a solid wood. They probably have to make about 2 or 3, whereas this is all from the era where they started to sort of make things in bigger quantities. It wasn't quite mass production, but it was getting there. And so we've got different woods on the inside, and then this more exotic wood in thin form on the outside. So looking at mine, I can actually see, you might not be able to see it there, but my patterns actually start to reflect upon themselves. So they're using the veneers in a really clever way to create even more interest on them. So this here, you won't be able to see it necessarily. Let's see if I can get in a bit closer for you. This might be a, no, I don't think I can actually, because I don't think I'm in the stream. Right, we'll give it a go. Give it a go. Just so I can get the sound not to. That'll be good. Into studio. By the way, that's my chair. In case you think that I've grown something appendage. That doesn't look good, did it? Let's just have this. How do I get that? I know what I'll do. I'll put my headphones in. Just bear with me. It's first time for everything. I've done this on Zoom before, but not on StreamYard, so. Do feel free to chip any questions in as I go through, if they're relevant to what I'm talking about, and you want to sort of, you know, stop me and buy one, as they say, or I can obviously take questions at the end. Hopefully that will keep that quiet. Just trying to get my mouse to wake up. So I think it's that way around, isn't it? It's a bit wobbly. I don't know why it's wobbly. Yeah. So you can see on there, the pattern here is mirrored down here. I don't know if you can just about see that. So this is actually book matched. There's actually a very fine line in the veneer there. And so they've used it and they've split it, but they've got it going opposite so it reflects, which gives double the drama. See what I mean? Similarly here, you've got, there's a light on it unfortunately, but there's a line up the middle, so that's veneer, but they've turned it over. So it's called book match. They do, there's probably many, many more of them. I'm not a cabinetry expert in that way, but there's quarter match, so you might end up with 4 sections of veneer going out, and then, you know, obviously it gets all the way up to almost like parquet rather, creating much more interest. So actually that patternation there is not in the wood itself, it's just those marks, and then the other side. See? It's very interesting. I love using that sort of patternation to work with when I'm doing my own. Let me just see if I can take that out. How do I do that? Bear with me. I don't know how to get the close-up out. There we go. It's really clever, but yeah, just got to practice a little bit. So yes, definitely go and have a bit of a read, identify what you've got going on with your woods, just in terms of, is it an oily wood? Is it, really figured wood like a walnut, which has got, lots of different deep colours in it? Is it sort of something really plain? That sort of thing can be quite, not so much for the sort of stripping part, but in terms of how you're going to finish it, in terms of the final look. Because there is some considerations, like really oily woods like teaks don't stain very well. A walnut is going to be a great one if you want to pop the grain, as they say. Certain really pale woods like, I don't know, pine, you wouldn't want to pop the grain, so we wouldn't really go down that path. We might go for a different kind of thing. We might want to tone it down in terms of the orange. So just getting an idea of what you've got. Is an easy way to find out wood has been used? I was asking. I can add these to the stream. Look, I've not used this feature before. Good at it. Well, not an easy way, because what you'll find is a lot of these also just have a little sample, and you've kind of got to then use your imagination to sort of expand it out. But certainly when you're looking for the patterns in the wood, just bear in mind that that sort of mirrored, reflected thing is not the exact pattern, like I said. On this piece, it's just diagonal lines going that way, rather than this sort of fan shape that they've managed to create from the veneers together. This very, very whirly, sort of heavily sort of patterned, almost like worlds, it does often tend to be walnut. And you can sort of, when you're looking at an era of your piece, is similar sort of era to mine, I think, actually, isn't it? And I would say yours is walnut, looking at it. So there's not an easy way, but just over time, you might see it on the listing, advertised as walnut, and then you sort of memorize it, and then you recognize a little bit of patination on another piece. So if you're not sure, ask the question, and we'll have a look at it and see if we can identify it between us. The walnuts and oaks and rosewoods and etc., the heavier, darker woods tend to be earlier woods. Things like teak and golden oak and elm and sapele tend to be sort of mid-century ones. That's as a sort of rough. I don't think we've got any mid-century pieces currently going on this particular one, but we may have. We might bring one along. So yeah, we can have a look at it together. That's probably the easiest way. So where are we up to in terms of what I'm looking at? But the other thing is, what you'll find when you start to look at it, and this is going to give you things to consider for your design, not necessarily how you're going to strip it, because I think but it might mean that you don't strip it. So that's something to think about. For anybody who's sort of kind of new to this sort of the world of furniture upcycling, if we're painting something, we don't necessarily have to strip that to the wood. So you might look at something and think, I don't think that's going to be very exciting wood under there. I'm not going to strip it. And we're going to come on to the different stripping techniques, and we'll talk about which are good for which. And sometimes it's personal choice, sometimes it's what finishes you've got and what sort of state it's in. But we'll come on to that next week. For mine, so I've got all this lovely, I'm thinking most of it is walnut. I may have some oak here. I have seen many of these finished pieces where they mix up the woods. And then what they seem to do is put a dark toned varnish over it so that it homogenizes it, makes it all a similar colour and unifies it effectively. Plus the other factor here is that this would have darkened over time, I imagine. I know the fashion was for the sort of the darker colours, but the varnish would darken too, which is why I've lost the distinction. So I think it's a combination of age and trying to sort of disguise different wood types that they've thrown together that means that we can't really see the grain. But I think the fashion now is just to let the wood reveal itself, whether it's oak and walnut on the same piece. Just enjoy the wood grains. So I may have oak here, and I've got my piece upon little dollies. And if you've got anything like wheels or a trolley on hand, this is a really good pieces. I know some of the ladies who are doing this full-time work. Now that still looks a bit like walnut on the side to me, potentially, but a different cut because it's got different shape. So it's less swirly and a straighter, so it might be more blank. To be honest, you don't have to know what it is. It's just interesting. And of course, if you're going to sell it, you might have to describe what it is as well. You don't have to know. It's not going to sort of stop stop you doing something with it. What I've also got on mine is legs. Can you see the legs? So you're going to go all around it. My legs are on a, let's just take that down. There we go. They're on a, there's also sort of a base here and there's a bar underneath as well. There often is with these beauty pieces, which is a pain in the bum because they don't sit on stands very easily. From experience, I know that that's not particularly very nice wood, and very often you'll find parts of the frame and the extra, pieces where they didn't need to go to town weren't very exciting. So I've done these pieces before, and when you get this off, which is dark brown here, which matches, you just end up with really pale, and I mean pale legs with no particular discernible grain on them. I hope you can hear me okay, because I've just disappeared down there. No particular discernible grain. It's almost like pine, just very nothingy. I'm just going to check, get a bit further down and check, because I haven't. If this here, that looks a little bit more interesting, but it still doesn't have much grain on it. I suspect it is going to be plain. So that, for me, on many pieces, I will paint it, and I paint them metallic. The other option is you strip it back and you stain it, so it just sort of blends it in. And that's just design choices if you don't want to distract, or if you don't want to put anything too blingy on your piece. So that's something to think about. You might find plain areas, but don't worry about it if you can't tell. We'll strip it and then you can look at it again. Also on mine, internally, this is sapele wood, which you can see it well enough, is teak coloured, but not teak because it doesn't have the big flame grain. And this is very typical, and this also gives away, as did the legs to some extent, that this isn't, you might think it was Art Deco, but it's probably 1950s, late 50s, because this is when they were using these woods. So a lot of mid-century pieces will have this as the carcass, effectively, this sapele wood. So presumably it was easy to get hold of. African mahogany. It's not actual mahogany, but it's an African mahogany, I think. Anyway, like I said, not an expert, but just, constantly learning, and I find it very interesting. So this inside is in pretty good condition compared to the rest of it. So I will be looking at that, but I won't be stripping it. I'm going to be refreshing that. So I'll be showing you that, when we get sort of the week before the finishes, I'll show you how you can get that looking perfect inside, but we don't need to start stripping it. So I'm going to leave that, with the exception of the drawers. These are always a bit of a pain because the wood in this is usually rubbish, and then you get things like stains and etc. in it, and then that's a tricky one. And then, if anybody's got any nails sticking up there, suggestions. So again, you've got that sapele wood inside, but this is very thin ply, and you can actually, if you've got damage, you can actually take the bases off, take these out and replace them. So if they're really badly stained or damaged, and for selling it, you could do that. You could paint it this bit, or you could line it. There's some marks that just won't come out. That one might actually be, sometimes you get like biro and ink or whatever. I don't mean biro, I mean ink. And they just don't come out. So that's something to just be aware of, because it can really affect how something looks at the end. But if it's for your own use, you might not be too bothered. And then I've also got to deal with this delight. So I'm going to be pulling out I was going to say it's not even felt anymore because it's had such a rough ride, but it might be under there that it's fine. So if you've got one like this, what I usually do is just soak it with warm soapy water, and it usually gets rid of the adhesive starts to just give up. Because that's the good thing about old adhesives. They've usually had it, and they can either crack or just give up the ghost. You could use heat, but I think that could get you in a more of a gooey mess. So I like to try and get them off dry first, and then try wet, and then try heat. And then you can see quite a lot of my damage there. So I'm going to come on to that. So I know what kind of woods I'm dealing with. Now I'm going to think about the damage I've got and the condition it's in. And if I need to just be aware of any elements of that when it comes to the stripping process, so I've got to be careful that I don't sort of, rip anything off that I didn't mean to. Let me just have a sip of coffee and check where I was up to. So we're going to talk about the damage. Yes, so sorry, guys. It was a strange noise, but it was the dog dragging something across the floor with his tail. Yes, to the veneer, in terms of the condition of it. Now, that's one of the biggest things I guess we'll probably be dealing with here, because by its very nature, veneer is really thin. It sort of really affects how we sort of approach the restoration process, because we just need to be careful with it, basically. And it's very old often, and it's brittle. And so, as I've said, I've got quite a lot of damage here on my piece where it's gone through the edge. It has been previously repaired from another demo, but I didn't get much further. And you can see the wood underneath. That's a button that's fallen out the drawer. And so all of this is gone. And what is challenging for me, so this is going to be really interesting because I've not approached this before, is this is veneer repair on a curve. There is a line here where it goes up and then it curves over. So there's visually a line that catches the light. Can I do something with that? Or is it going to be a case of painting, repairing? What I don't want to do is repair the whole thing, because as you probably see on your own pieces, I've got continuation of pattern veneer all the way down the front of this, linking all the drawers. It's obviously, it's quite a good giveaway that you've got your drawers in the wrong order if your veneer pattern looks a bit weird. So if you do have anything like that, just check. Obviously mine are different sizes, so that's not such an issue here. So I don't want to replace the veneer. I'm going to have to repair it. I'm going to go through the process of repairing it, showing you all of that. Some of the areas up here are quite large for touching in, because when you're disguising something to look like wood, it's never sort of completely invisible. So the bigger it is, the more, it might grab the eye. So I might think about doing something decorative across that top edge. So these are things I'm thinking about. And my veneer up here is actually loose, some of it. So I may just tape that so that I don't catch it when I'm stripping. And you might even want to put a little bit of tape somewhere to remind yourself of bits you spotted. Because what I suggest you do is go over your piece, check all the edges, flicking them, sort of tapping. Make sure you haven't got any lifted areas. Sometimes you can say just across the edge that I might find there's a crack, but then next to it the veneer is loose. So you just want to just double check, because quite a lot of the methods are going to involve pushing something across the surface, so you don't want to sort of flick that. So it's just an awareness of what you've got going on. So poke, prod, lift. I sometimes get a little blade, like a scalpel blade, and just push it under and see if something's actually loose. So just basically do a sort of assessment of everything that you've got going on. And then also what have I got? I've got some nibbling down here. Literally looks like nibbling, and it's actually gone into the sort of edge of the door, so it's not in the finish. This is something that you'll probably get used to as you go along. Some of it you might be able to tell, but often your piece can look worse than it actually will do when it's stripped, because the damage is just in the finish, as in it's just in the varnish or whatever they put on to protect it. So you've got scratches, and you can feel with your fingertips, sometimes you can see that hasn't gone into the wood, it's just in the surface, which is why I say to people it might not look so bad once you stripped it. The same things like watermarks, I've got quite a lot across the top of mine. I've got quite a lot across the top of mine. Is that the right way around? Yes, so I've got some watermarks here. Those to me look like they're in the finish. I've got some paint on there, that would be me, that's probably done that. So this is broken up finish here. Are you close enough to see? Yeah. So some of this may just vanish completely once we've got the finish off. That's a bit broken up there. Again, there's some doubts probably got in, but it doesn't worry me too much actually what's going on here. This section here. You can actually see where the finish is melted away. There was something, probably alcohol. Can you see that on there? Yeah. So you can see the difference. And so I can see how thick my finish is as well. So some of the scratches, it's all crazed. some of the scratches are going to disappear when that comes off, which is great because we don't have to do anything about them. This one here, this is going to be interesting. This may have stained wood underneath, so we'll have a look. Generally, the white marks are usually where there's moisture trapped in the finish, but this may have gone through. And things like black marks, it can be things like burns in the wood. So we will assess that again. I'll just remove that. Assess that again once we get it stripped back and we know what we're working with. So don't worry too much about the things like water staining and visible marks initially, because they might go. And then the finish itself, your finish might be chipping or like sort of crazed or flaking off, that sort of thing. So that's quite interesting to know, because that can, you can get a sense of how thick it is, like mine there. And that might indicate that actually this is just going to sand off. It's going to come off really easily. Maybe don't need to go to the extent of trying to put something on if it's already crumbling, like a liquid stripper. So that's just something to think about. And then other finishes. Now you can actually go through a step-by-step sort of figuring out what finish is, but you don't need to necessarily, because you can just sort of choose the right approach depending on how thick it is. I think if you've got a very, very shiny, thick lacquer that almost looks plasticky, that's something to consider. And I think one of the pieces in the group, Nadine's, might be quite along those lines. It reminded me of something I think you actually noted yourself, that it was quite shiny, although it was broken up in places and had come off, which gives you a bit of a hope that it might come off easily, because some finishes they're so tired they do just flake off. But if it's really, really thick and shiny, and I mean literally like plasticky looking, it could be a lacquer, and lacquers are particularly difficult to strip with paint strippers, so we may look at a heat option. So just note those things. It's really solid, it's really shiny, it looks really thick, that sort of thing. Is when we come to next week, we can sort of make some decisions about how you're going to do it. So those are the sort of things to be thinking about. And then the other things are, have you got any warping where things don't shoot properly and line up? Now this had been in my garage for years before I got it on FreeCycle, and I couldn't get the drawers open. It's all right now. It's quite firm, but I think my problem is the drawers. So I'm going to have to fix my drawers. This one's actually fell apart and I couldn't get the drawer open because it's actually, I'm going to have to glue all this back together. It's actually in pieces. So we'll go through that. What I'm planning to do is do the actual repair work after the stripping week, because we need to do it in sort of separate sessions. We can't sort of try and do it all at once. So that we can do gluing and filling and stuff all at the same time. But it might be that there are, in the real world, I might set that aside to repair it, now before I start doing the stripping work. But we're going to do it in sequence just to make it a bit easier. So that's going to need repairing. And I think this one is too, because the little dovetails are just sticking out and catching the door. So it's a bit of a mess, frankly. Have you got any warping? Yes. Have you got any doors sticking, for example? Mine are sticking a little bit, but they might get easier once they've got this old, slightly knackered varnish off. Any missing pieces? Any broken trim, for example? Note those things. It might be that you need to take some trim off because it's broken. You might decide, I'm actually going to remove all this moulding because I'm either going to replace it later, but then it gives you a bit easier to, sort of access to get to the piece. Smells, the other thing, obviously I've got my delightful grubby green drawer. Have you got any interesting smells? Definitely wait till after we've done the stripping to take any remedial action on those, and we can have a chat about it, because things do get musty, and they'll get mustier when you strip them. What are you doing? And the way that I'm going to finish my interior is also a good way of stain blocking, so we'll come on to those, but it's just one thing to be aware of. And then, have you got any glass? That's another thing to think about. Can you take it out? Obviously, if you've got like Helen's cabinet, that's not going to happen. But I would suggest from the very start, if you want to be really, really cautious like me, I'm cautious because I'm a bit clumsy, to be honest, is I would probably, despite the funny shape, I'd probably tape off the glass. I might make some, get some sure what's going on there. I get some, just printer paper or some newspaper and cut out the shapes, and then just use some masking tape. I've just used the same frog tape that I usually use for everything else, like that one, and cover up the glass on both sides, because I find vintage glass really easy to scratch because it's old, it's not toughened. So it's even just standing nearby, you can accidentally catch it, and putting them down, because as you see, we're going to take the whole thing apart to work and just make it a bit easier. So I would, if you've got any glass, either take it out, take it away, or cover it up from the start. If you're very, very careful and very precise, then don't worry about it so much. And then looking at the condition of things like the backs as well, because the plywood on those tends to get very desiccated and start splitting through the layers. So those are things you might want to sort of look at as well. I have got glass on mine, and as I come to dismantle it, I'm going to try and see if I can take that out, because the more that we can take apart, the easier it is to strip. I saw somebody the other day actually who actually was, I know what's just happened. You probably saw that happen and I didn't, but the piece has just fallen off the dollies because I pushed it. Could have been. Let's get it back on if I can. Could have been fun. Stripping a piece of furniture with the drawers in, stood upright, which I thought, considering that products will move when they're stood upright, and I don't know, just like you can't get into all of the areas quite effectively. So the same as when we're painting, we're going to strip it down, and the bits we can lie flat, we will, because we'll get a better strip, we'll get a better use of the product, put it that way. And we'll also obviously going to take all the fittings so we can get back to the surfaces. Where am I up to? Stripping down. All right, yeah, there. So that's what I'm going to do next. Let's just see what I have for time. Pretty good. Okay, so I'll do a little bit of taking apart. As you can see, there's quite a bit to do there. So I won't do it all now, but I'll just give you a taste of it for anybody who's not used to dismantling vintage furniture. Now, I had a little look ahead, and what you'll find is most of these pieces will be flathead screws. So you're going to want a normal kind of straight screw bit like that. I've got an electric screwdriver because it's hard work actually getting screws and hinges on and off constantly with a normal screwdriver. However, I would say the normal screwdriver is quite helpful for this stage, because these screws can be quite hard work to get out, and you often have to apply quite a lot of pressure and to do it really slowly to get them to catch, especially if the head's gone a little bit. So having normal screwdrivers at this point is quite handy. And I'm going to get absolutely everything off, because I want these doors flat to strip, whether I'm going to use paint strip, whether I'm going to scrape, whether I'm going to use sand, they want to be flat. So I can get an even pressure, and I'm not going to be gouging anything. The drawers that I can do stood up like this. And what else? I'm going to have a little look at the back actually, because this is a great big piece of wood on the top, and this is a bit that sits on top of it. And I know not everybody will have this kind of scenario, but in order to strip this well, trying to get into this part here with stripper and just leaving it as it is, if I can get something apart, I'm going to get a better effect. I'm going to get a better effect with my finishes, applying them, if I can get it apart. So I'm going to try and do that. Similarly, if your piece allows you to get the back off, you're going to get a better finish in a lot of ways. I know quite a few of the cabinets that people have been sharing, they won't, and you'll be able to tell really if you can get your back off easy. It'll have screws rather than, some of them have staples, And I have gone to the extent of taking the back off when it's got staples just because I really needed to get in there. So some of the display cabinets have screws, some of them have staples. You will get a better effect. If it's quite a knackered plyboard, you might think to yourself, I'm just going to rip it off and I'll replace it. So it's a bit of a decision-making process. If it's going to be too hard to get off and you're going to absolutely ruin it and you don't want to replace it, then you just have to work with it on. With mine, turn it round, mine's got screws on. Now I know Amy's working on these as well. It's got quite a well-finished back. And this, if I get this off, you imagine how much easier it's going to be to strip all this top section and to work with. So, and also my glass is embedded in here and it has to come out from the back. It's in a groove, so it has to come off. So I would have to unscrew all of these pieces of the back and pull that off. It doesn't look like the bottom back bit comes off, but however, I will probably manage with that in place. So I'm probably going to do it in 2 parts. Leave it for the bottom section for the cabinets, because this isn't on show as much, but because this has got nice wood that goes across the top. I don't know if you need to see that necessarily. This nice wood here continues in here. So I am going to see now. There's a lot of these big cabinets. This one's not a particularly complicated one, like an open out cocktail cabinet. A lot of the cocktail cabinets will come apart, but often you'll find sections that just won't. And so take apart what you can. But obviously, if it doesn't, we just have to work around it. Just going to open this wing nut and see. I started trying to prise these off before I realised there was actually a wing nut underneath, and I suddenly thought, I'm glad I didn't damage the wood too much above. But you know, that's what you sort of have to do, is a bit of a detective work, really. This will come off. Just going to get that off. If I can't, I'll come back to it another time. Then I can do the top a bit better. I'm just going to bang the screw, see if it'll come out. I think that's it. Ooh. How exciting. Wow, the colour underneath is totally, I will have to show you that. I don't know if I have to lift it myself though. Yeah, okay. That looks quite nice on the wall by itself, I think. Oh, goodness me. We have fairy lights, cocktail sticks, and all sorts in there. So actually, that's what it would look like before. Found my mouse. Can I show it? No, that's me. Wrong way around. Yeah, so that's the original finish. And actually you can see how it's disappeared. It's not even visible anymore. That's the bit that's been on show. So I would say that's probably down to cleaning products. And it explains why we need to look at the finishes a bit better. So, interesting. Yours is screwed too. More close-ups, please. What would you like to see a close-up on, Jackie? I'm happy to leave it on. I'll be leaving it on when I'm doing my dismantling, so let's just leave it on now. Let's leave it on. And that's the wrong way around, isn't it? I do find front and back cameras really confusing. Let's try it this way. See if it. Oh no, I've come out of the thing. Hang on, right there. Right. Are we on? No, that's the wrong way around. Right. I've got it on my thingy now, so I'm getting a bit closer. Woohoo! Look at that. Some bits of technology. So Amy's working on a Beautility like mine. Yeah, totally separate. Isn't it funny? Yeah. It's like a totally separate thing. And so this is part of the design process now, and that's why I like working with the furniture rather than coming to it saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's like, is this more usable in someone's house? Because the spaces on that but again, I don't really like throwing decent stuff away. So that's just part of the decision-making process that I'm going to make over the next. I can hear sound. Is that making noise? Decision-making process over the next. Oh, I know it's my headphones. Ignore them. Coming weeks, which you might have to help me make. So my handles look absolutely knackered, and that screw's just bent, so that's okay. So I will decide if I want to replace these or not. One of the other ones is bent as well, but we can replace these screws. It's not a problem. Replace these screws. So all of this has come off. Now I'll use. This is actually my Bradall, but it's got such a tiny little screwdriver end on it that I like, and that's really good for these screws. Now, little ones like this I might keep that go specifically with the catches. Just going to grab an extra frog tape box for my bits, and they will go in there. This might need a bit of rehabilitation, but often you can spray this sort of thing up. And so as I'm taking these off, I can assess them as well as to what I need to do with them later on. So I might need to clean them, I might need to replace them, I might need to refinish them. And we're going to cover those bits as well, because it's all part and parcel of the restoration, isn't it? So if you've got broken catches, if you've got missing things, think about that. So I'm just going to do this one. I might as well do this one, I'll break my hand. No, actually, a little bit too small. So I'll use this. I might use a bigger screwdriver on it. So I was saying in the tools, if you've got to buy yourself something, definitely go for one with these little screwdriver bits, because then you can get a whole selection box of them, and you can swap them in and out as needed. And they work with electric screwdrivers. You can get them with manual handles. You can even get a drill bit if you've already got a drill. So you don't have to have an electric screwdriver, but the little bits do give you more option. So I'm just going to hold it in. Come out. So this one has had a bit of a hard life, so it's whether you actually decide to keep these, shine them up, or throw them in the box of candles that you end up with. It depends what look you're going for. So now, obviously I take the other catches off there as well, and then there's a catch on here too. So that's the matching bit for the other bit. So that all comes out. The shells come out as well. But I'm going to refinish the interior. I'm not going to strip that down, so I'm going to leave that alone. But I will need to clean it all, of course, at the next stage. What I've just done is I've rigged up a little demo of a different kind of handle, because I know that some of you will find that you've got these bolt covers on the back. So-called domes of silence, but bolt covers, if I know, nut covers, I suppose. So this is a different kind of handle, 2 parts. And sometimes you find these are pinned, these back plates. And if you find you can't get it off, and you can see a little tiny head, and they are quite soft pins as well. It's to get something like, this has had a fine rings. I think I've had this since the beginning. But I love it. I should clean it. You can use a sander to clean it. Because it's got such a fine edge, it actually tapers at the edge there. It's really thin, but it's tough. So it doesn't bend itself. So it's just to get underneath and prise to lift your nails out. Just edge it around gently, so you're not bending anything. You can get underneath the nail head if you need to. I think that's what that circle's for in the middle, but I've never used it like that. So on the back, now I've tried to emulate it, but the bolt's a bit too long, so that's not sitting flat. But these often sit so flat into the wood that you can't see how to get in there. They've got 3 little spikes. I think some have 4, and you can just get a flat edge and find your way in to lift it up, to prise it up, and you'll start to see the teeth. And then if it's a bit stuck, that's when I might use my screw puller, which is another Wilko special. Very useful. If you get a screw that's stuck in, won't unscrew from a hinge, they're quite useful to get underneath, and just, that's what they're actually for screws. But you can just use that to push it up, and you'll find its little teeth, like so. That's a baby one. And then all you need is your pliers. You find a square nut or what's that? Hexagon. So just a regular set of pliers is really handy, but I used to do jewellery ages ago, one of my many hobbies, that never went anywhere. So I've got a whole set of jewellery pliers. If you've got anything that's like that, these are really handy for furniture because they're just the right size for holding onto a nut. Ooh, and then holding the handle the other side and just, it's quite loose actually, and just spinning that off. And then it just gets stuck at the end because it's been cut and get it off. Doesn't matter. But anyway, you've got two parts there. That little bit will slide out from behind the plate. But don't fear, if you see the bulb covers, the nut covers or whatever, everything needs to come off that can. And then also going to, so more handles, obviously that's the same as what we've just gone through. I'm also going to take off my doors, hinges, etc. So I would use my electric screwdriver here, but if I struggle, I will switch to and it is, you know, I know it's not rocket science, but vintage screws can be an absolute pain. And this sort of era, you can see that these are quite, you can see how big close I can get. They're quite chunky, decent sized screws because it's a bit more contemporary, but older ones can be quite small and they get damaged very easily. And really the soft metal that they're made of, I don't think we should be putting them back in. These are actually quite robust, so these could go back in, but I don't fancy trying to get them back in and out several times while I'm working on it, so they may not go back in. But if they started to get battered around the head and sort of, I'd just get rid of them. And we'll talk about what the sort of things that I would use. And usually, this might go a bit too fast if it's got it themselves a bit stuck. I might have to get a manual screwdriver. I don't want to scratch this hinge, just go. Yeah. My drill actually that takes these has speed, so it can go a bit slower. So I'm just going to get a manual one rather than damaging it. But yeah, I keep all the old screws, but I tend not to put them back in because they are hard to get in and out. Oh look, the first one I do is going to be an absolute pain. So I'm going to use a lot of pressure. I'm actually pushing against the back of the furniture to give myself, otherwise the furniture will move. Real leverage on it. I'm going to just try and see what else I've got. Nearly right, not quite. Very odd assortment of screwdrivers. I think it's quite typical, isn't it? You end up with in your house. So I just want one that fits the right. Typical. These will not be going back in. I think that's safe to say. Right, the very first one I've done, I'm out. Look, that one's very good size. That one's okay. But I read the authority that they weren't obviously weren't meant to come out again, so it's you can ruin the thread. So putting them back in again, I just don't think it's worth the effort. Although my comforting grandfather would probably tell me to, because some people like to put them in and have all the screw heads lined up the same way. Now that's not coming out, so we'll try the screw colour, and I might have to get a bit vicious with it. Oh, goodness me, I didn't expect this. There we go. That's done what it's supposed to do, at least. And then, as a last resort, you may have to use another technique if they won't come out. Some people like to use elastic bands on there to push them into the grooves. I've not ever had that work for me. You can get punches that you hammer in, and it's supposed to get them. That one's okay. See, I might see the one we're putting them back in. So I usually use a Phillips screw, which we'll show you at the end when we're doing our finishing touches. So I'll have to attach that a bit more. Worst case scenario, I've had to literally drill down it. So let's hope you don't have to deal with that scenario. I think I could probably, it's just starting to move now. And if you're really stuck, you can just turn it the other way so slightly and actually break the thread even. So it's moving now. So I will take all of that off, and take it off on this side as well, so the door is completely free of metal. and then I'll start cleaning. So I'm putting that as it is. I won't spend much longer on that to get the idea. And then I'm going to just ask my to move. Is there anything else? Let me just check. Yeah. Oh yeah, I suppose the only thing is, if anybody is doing mid-century stuff, is that your handles might be glued on. This might be more the sort of ergonomic curved handles. Often, sometimes they do pop off because the glue is a little bit old and past it. But often we just have to take around things. So if you definitely know that you've got that kind of handle, it's not going to come off. When we come to doing the stripping section, we will look at sort of masking off things so that we can just protect them if we're using any kind of chemicals for stripping. So in this instance, if I wanted to protect this back, this sapele from the stripper, I would, I'm going to mask there. So you can mask around handles and attach it as well, so that we don't make a mess there. That's it. Taking off the glass we've talked about, taking off the back, I'm all right at the minute for that. And then make sure you save all your bits and bobs in a container. And now I do know people who actually number up all of their hinges so they go back in the right place. And I must admit, I'm a little bit sort of gung-ho. I just throw them in a container and figure it out, because unless they're sort of twisted, they're pretty much interchangeable. You might find that the gaps are a little bit bigger on where they've been cut in on one or the other, and you can just keep going till they fit. And I'm not going to put the screws back in, so I'm not worried about that either. So you don't have to overcomplicate it, but sometimes if you've got elements that, maybe there's specific screws, some round head screws on catches, you might want to just tape them together so you know which ones there are when you put them in the container. Does that make sense? Anything you might want to ask me about your specific pieces in terms of stripping down? Oh, good. I'm glad the close-up's working. It's definitely something else to get sorted for you. Oops. All wristy screws are a nightmare. They are. So once we get past this stage, but yeah, it's that technique of sort of pushing quite hard and sort of bracing against the piece and trying to get it into the groove usually works. Just do it really slowly, but with a lot of pressure. If you've got to go and find somebody to do that for you, then do. And if you have any problems, post a pic and we'll have a look. Let's get on to cleaning. I'm going to leave these in place. You can certainly clean your piece. I would take all of the hardware off in terms of handles and catches so you can at least, scrub. But you can clean it certainly with the doors on. You don't have to take them all off. But obviously the drawers you want to get into, so they will come out. So you want to get inside the carcass and everything. Just move that bit further out. You can always, if there's a better view, you can figure it out. So, first things first, in terms of getting it clean, and this is really moving into the sort of prep stages. We've now got ourselves, we've got everything dismantled, so we've got good surfaces to go at. But we want to now get rid of all of the old dust, dirt, just grease from people's hands from touching, elements of the piece will have sat there. Furniture polishes, waxes, all that sort of stuff needs to come off. And I guess the obvious question is, why do I need to do that? Let's just get rid of him because I just see the side of my head. We'll come back. There we go. The obvious question is going to be, because I would ask it myself, is why do I need to clean it when I'm going to strip it? So when we come to next week and we're starting to go back to the bare wood, because I absolutely would never refinish a piece of furniture over the old finish. It's definitely got to come off. We've talked about revealing the grain and the fact that the old varnish is tired. It's got to be stripped back. But why do you have to clean it? Because it's all going to come off anyway. Now I, as ever, figured out some of this stuff by skipping the step. I started to use stripper a lot, and I thought, I don't need to clean it. because it's all going to get scraped off, until I came across a golden oak little sideboard, which wasn't that long ago actually, maybe last year sometime, 18 months ago. And the stripper, there must have been dirt on the surface of the wood. It discoloured the wood to the point that we couldn't, no matter how much we tried to lighten it, using some of the things we'll show you later on, couldn't get the I'll call it the grub out of the light golden oak. And so I ended up staining it to look like teak, which kind of did it a service really, actually, because of the era of it. It looked more fitting for mid-century. I even had somebody say on Instagram, well, you can't do that to mid-century furniture. I'm like, well, it's not teak, so it's fine. You want to see it before. But so I've learned the hard way, and certainly if you're going to be using sort of a friction type of stripping, like electric sander or cabinet scraping, which is quite a, I don't know, lots of movement, friction. Those kind of stripping methods can actually push anything that's on the surface. As you're scraping it, you can be pushing those things into the wood. So, think of it a bit like skin, I suppose. The grain is a bit like your pores. If we don't get that dirt off first, you can be essentially embedding it further in, which could cause you problems later on when it comes to putting down a finish. You might find you have some problems with things reacting to your finish. It's the same as when we're painting. We don't want any of that stuff on the surface because it stops the paint sticking. We don't want our finishes to fail because there's something in the wood. I want our wood to be nice and fresh and clean. So we're going to get all of that off first, so that it doesn't sit there in the stripper or get in the way of any of the processes. That's why. So first things first, I would go all over it with a dustpan brush or a hoover with a, you've got one of those nice little brush attachments. I won't do that here because of the noise of it, and you don't really need that. This out there. And you may have, if you've been doing furniture before, you may have your favourite cleaners, and I'm certainly not here to sort of say use a specific one. I'm just going to clean some of the party pieces I found underneath there, off there. So I would go all over the piece of furniture. Usually, to be fair, I'd probably get underneath first, and I know there's loads of cobwebs under there, and that's where I would definitely use a vacuum cleaner because, so I would have this upside down first and get in and underneath, get all the stuff out. Also, you can appraise underneath, it doesn't need cleaning and etc. while you're down there. And will I need to just tidy it up? Because I know it doesn't seem like much, but if you are doing it to sell, these things often end up, with their bottom showing when they get packaged to go places, and it's good to have gone all over it and to tidy it all up. But I can't do that for the purpose of this because you keep it this way up. So I would do that first, and then I'll go in and vacuum all of the cabinetry inside. In all of this section will get wiped and vacuumed to get all the dust out, so it's all refreshed basically. So you need to do that first. So I'll show you just on some flat surfaces the cleaning part. Right, it's lots. Like I said, by all means use the products you're used to using. If you're already doing so, I'll show you the ones that I use. But I do mix it up as well, and it is not a problem. Washer there somewhere. But I think it's quite important with this older wood is not to get it too wet, so that we don't cause more damage. I've obviously got bits of missing veneer, and I don't really want that to go underneath even further. We don't want good bits of veneer to get too soggy and it just releases the glue or it starts to bubble. It might happen, and if it happens, don't worry about it, because you kind of want it to happen now while you're in the process of taking it down to its bare essentials to build it back up and finish it. You don't want it to happen later anyway, because it could be somewhere that's a little bit more damp, it could be somewhere a little bit more warm, and then it happens. So we kind of want all the bad stuff to come out in the wash now, but we also don't want to be causing more damage than we need to. So I always apply my cleaning products in a spray. because I don't want to go with like big, thick, wet cloths, for example. So I've listed in the product supply list the Fusion TSP alternative, because it's an organic biodegradable product basically, so it's good for the environment as well. But the good thing about it is also you can be a little bit less careful with it, let's put it that way. You can, it's a no rinse formula, so you can just clean, and you know that whatever you're using isn't going to then sit in the surface and cause a problem if you try to put a product on later on. So for example, you know, we noticed parts of mine have got bits of bare wood, and if I use something quite full on, like Mr. Muscle or something, to clean it down, like, because you do need a degreasing type of cleaner, not just a washing up liquid. Although I suppose that is degreasing, but you know what I'm saying, something a little bit more intentionally degreasing. That could sit in the wood, something a bit more harsh like that could sit in the wood and then cause a problem when I put my finish on later on. So being non-rinse formula is great, personally for me, because, you know, like I say, if I make a mistake of being a bit clumsy. But you could also use something like another popular one, sugar soap. I know this one is a diluted one. You can get it in actual, you know, granulated formula. It's concentrated, so I've just diluted it into a spray bottle like that. But you would need to make sure to rinse this sort of thing a lot better. Another thing I've used for cleaning quite a bit lately, these are just the little hairdresser bottles, so I usually use them for, that's the one with the Fusion in. That's got ammonia in it, so that's again quite a cheap household degreaser. I use it for ovens and bathrooms and stuff, and that's quite natural as well. So have a little look at some of the things I recommended, but of course use what you think. Then I use these little scrubbies. So please don't use wire wool or anything any more abrasive than this. This has got a bit of a scratch to it, which is good, but it's plastic, so it won't. But what I like about those is they go in the wash. They last quite a long time, and they also work as part of my stripping process. So use whatever for cleaning, that's fine, but I would highly recommend ones with sponges inside for stripping. And we'll see when we come on to it, they are much more useful than the ones that have got a sponge with a scrubby bit mounted on it, because they just get all clogged up. So these are handy. And then I've got a very glamorous bucket for my water, and you might, I don't think I'll need these for this piece, but I just wanted to show them to you in case you might have wondered what they were. On the supply list when I mentioned wire brushes, if you've got any sort of delicate little carvings or mouldings that you're going to strip, these little brushes are quite handy. They usually come in a set of 3 like this, but I couldn't find a set of, mine are tired, so when I went to replace them I couldn't find little ones, so I ended up with big ones. But there's usually a brass, some kind of silver metal, I'm not sure what that is, and then a plastic one, like a nylon one. So they're good, really good for cleaning hardware as well. So if you can find the smaller versions, they're even better. But they're great for getting dirt out of crevices and ornate detail, and they're good for using for stripper as well. And again, hardware. So they're quite useful to have. I don't think I'm going to need them for this. And then I use microfiber cloths as well. And these are old, dirty ones, but they go in the wash. In order to cut down on things like paper towels, cling film and stuff like that. Cling film? Paper towels and kitchen roll. Yes, when you've got a masking tape habit like mine, you try and cutting back in waste in other ways. So, but they are really handy through the process actually. And what I'm going to do with that is to make sure I don't leave too much water sitting on the surface, and let it dry out that way. I want to dry it. Let me just change that. I've got so much stuff on the table here. Which one else? Let's just hide that. Let's go close up. Let's do. Now again, this isn't rocket science, but there, you know, we've got people who haven't done any intervention before, so obviously I do want to show you what I do so you can actually see it, rather than just say, go clean that. That's an interesting little screw. Where's that from? Just save that, just in case. So I'm going to use my diffusion. Oops, just in case, because I might talk and forget to. I'm going to spray it on. Please don't have put this in a spray bottle, it doesn't work. I used to have a massive selection of these, and the one way around it all broken. So don't buy the really cheapy ones, is what the answer is. That's not right. I'll just use the sugar soap because that sounds great. Come on. Okay, sort of. Okay. I'll let you work out a better spray bottle system than I've got going on at the minute, because I obviously need to buy some new ones. So I'm going to just leave it on the surface. I've got my cloth wet to start with, so it's and run out. And you can start to clean, but don't just sort of pass over it and then it's done. Come back to it, because what you actually find, it's usually a good idea to put something on the floor as well, is that parts of it will start to go white, and it might be like around where the door handles were. It might be, the tops of the drawers. People just use their hands to push it back, and it's usually just starting to reactivate the dirt. So if you just wipe it over cursorily and move on, you've kind of still left that there to dry down. And you might see that it's sort of like a frosted, sort of ghosty look. So just give it a little bit longer and go back and scrub that quite hard to get that off, because you'll find that it will then lift. Otherwise it'll just sort of sneakily sit there and say nothing, and then it'll dry again and it'll just still be dirty. So mine's just starting to get a little bit there. You can see it. And then keep going basically until it feels like it's not there. So that's all. See it. You can see it a little bit. You can just about see here that this has gone a bit ghosty. So I'll just give it a harder scrub and it comes off. Now you might find your finish starts to come off at this point, and it particularly happens with mid-century furniture. The particular furniture has been oiled, it'll start to come off and it'll all disintegrate and come off, and unfortunately you just have to keep going because you're sort of almost stripping your furniture at the same time. So don't worry, you've just got to keep cleaning. So you can see that sort of frosted look that's coming out here is reactivated dirt. It's give it another go over, is all I'm saying. It already looks a bit better now, doesn't it? And keep rinsing that, and then obviously your bucket gets dirty. You want to tip that away and get some fresh, and then just give it a quick wipe over to finish. And that's really sand, there's no loose areas, but when it comes to areas like this, I'm going to be careful not to get them too wet. And obviously it's got anyway. Let's just do a little bit on top. Let's see what that's doing. I can't see what it's doing without looking at the screen anyway. So I'll probably have to sweat this first, but we can try and I have to treat myself to some more bottles, don't I? Yeah, my finishes are giving up that easily, but just let me see a bit of their wood because it'll sink in. That bit there is interesting. And then really get into all these edges as well. But that's where those brushes can be quite handy. And that's it really. I think that's it really. It's just getting all over it, and then we're going to leave that to be fully dry before we actually move on to the next stage, before we do anything else. Whoa! Just close the close up. Oh, I'm just going to read what you just said then. Let's just get rid of that for a sec. But just let me know if you want to see anything else close up, and I'll do it. Yes, so yeah, I was mentioning about repairs before, and there's a bit too much water. In reality, you might start doing some at this stage in terms of the gluing. If you've got any sort of structural issues, like my drawers, for example, I might make those sound now, but rather than making next week a bit of a mix of trying to repair things and trying to strip things, I'm going to just focus on the getting back to the wood. If you have got any sort of obvious little hanging off bits and you want to glue them, you can see what the glue is, or wait. It's because I generally wouldn't do things like filling until after I've stripped it, because it obviously it's going to get soggy or scraped off. So I think that makes sense. It's not necessarily the sort of one order, and there's not necessarily either one clear pathway through pieces of furniture either, because sometimes you might come back and do a little bit more filling, you might come back and do a little bit more sanding, so sometimes it's a bit of zigzagging. So we'll steer our way as best we can through the process. So that's, I think, what we'll cover off in this session. We'll come back and start talking about different methods of stripping. I'm probably going to demo as many as I can across this, just so you can see the difference in them. Because often I'll go into a piece and I'll just use one method, so it'd be quite interesting to see how they perform side by side. But I'll be also give you sort of hints about the best ones to use. I'll definitely be sort of really going into the sort of scraping and sanding and the stripping using paint and varnish stripper. If you only want to do it one way, I'd go down the paint and varnish stripper route, because I think it's the gentlest, best way to tackle thin old veneer, or thin wood as in old veneer. And also the good thing about it is you can go off and do other things, whereas the other methods are much more hands-on and you've got to stand there and do them, and you need a little bit more equipment. So any questions, anybody? I'm just going to have a little look at what is in the comments. So Helen's saying, I've used my son's old polo shirts, but found they're brilliant. Are they that kind of like they used to call it Airtex, didn't they? Fabric, because it's got little tiny holes in. That's, yeah, and I actually should have said that. I know it's in the supply guide, isn't it? That, yeah, actually old rags are, you know, and particularly things like that, and old shirts and stuff are great for lots of parts of this process. You know, even sort of applications and wiping back and so on. So yeah, big bag of old clothes, hold on to them. But yeah, it's certainly, if you finish with cloths from the kitchen and they're just getting a bit too raggedy to have in the kitchen, stick them in a bag and keep them for upcycling, because they're perfect. Right, I'll give you a second to see if you've got any questions. I'll just check I've got covered everything off for today. I'm going to pop some links in this afternoon. I'll pull together some interesting reading on wood if you want to have a kind of geek out about some of the stuff. That's really good. That's really good. It's a good use for old clothes. We want to try and make as much of things as we can, don't we? But just don't think if I covered everything off that I wanted to go. Possibly. Yes. Good stuff. Let me just see. Any questions from anybody before we wrap up today? He's just off getting stuck in. I think people they're there off to get some cleaning done, generally, or otherwise. Yeah, well, the great thing about being able to work with you this time is that once I've finished a project that's got to go out the weekend, I'm fully on these pieces of furniture. So I'll be around for you in the group all throughout, and working on my furniture. So there might be things that I just suddenly decide to drop in and share with you. But do feel free to post whenever you need to, whenever you need some help with things. If you want to ask a question, ask me, you know, what do you do with this, that, the other? I've got this thing stuck, anything, you know, get stuck in. What stage should we get to for next week? Yes, that's a good question. Yes, so if you are stripped down and cleaned, Jackie, and your furniture, oh, that's good to know. Nadine is saying that the small wire brushes are on Amazon for £5.99. Now, if you're canny, I do have Scottish roots. You can get them from Home Bargains, Pound Stretcher, B&M for about £1.99. However, I can't find them. They sort of didn't hang up on those funny little strips in the middle of the aisle. So that's why I end up with the big ones. So if you can't find them, £5.99 delivered to your door is another one. But they are handy to have, as you can see. Mine are a hard life, but they're really, I find them very useful for cleaning the actual hinges and hardware. So if you can find them, so if you can get your piece stripped down, dismantled, assessed, so you can look at it and think, I'm going to paint that bit, so I'm not going to bother putting strip on it next week. So I know that I'm going to put strip on the top, the sides, the drawers and the door. I've got all the hardware in a pot. It's all clean, it's all hoovered. And then if you want to do some stripping next week, maybe have a look at what you're going to get for that. I haven't put links up to the scrapers, which I need to do in there for you. If you did want to, if it's something you want to explore, you've heard everybody talking about cabinet scrapers or carbide scrapers and you want to have a go, I will put a link up, but you can get them from lots of places. So just to give you an idea of what they are. And there's links to the paint and varnish stripper. So I get those things organised for after next week's session so that you can have a look at that. I will demonstrate a heat gun. You don't need to buy a heat gun, but just so you can have a look at it. And sanding. I'm going to be looking at sanding as well. So I'll be doing hand sanding and also looking at how some tips for electric sanding, because it is easier, but it's not necessary if you don't have one. So being at that stage, ready to get stripping. Lovely. Right, I'll give you a second or two before I say goodbye. And then this will be automatically in the group afterwards for anybody who's a little bit who's been busy doing other things, or has disappeared off, or is just catching up with us now. That's a great bit of advice from Amy, that you can get the dollies on Amazon if you type in furniture dolly. In fact, so these particular ones I've got here, you see they just look like little 3 wheels and the leg sits on them, so they're great for furniture with legs. You can actually put them under corners of things, but they do tend to wander off by themselves. These are the other kind. I'll just show you my one here. No, I can't get it out. This can. This is another kind. This one's from Aldi. It's quite a long time ago, but you can get them in wood with just the big wheels on, so that you can sit your furniture on it and you can turn it around and work. I've got a set of these that lock together, and you can get those lockable type from Homebase and B&Q as well. Very handy, just take the weight off your back. If you've got like a tea trolley, you can always stand your furniture on that. You can always make one with some casters and some wood. So, but very good advice. Aldi also have dollies at times under 20 quid. Yes, they do. Yes, these are quite old, but yeah, certainly worth having a look in the Isle of Dreams, Middle Isle of Dreams, whatever. No. Well, that's the middle, isn't it? Anyway, there's good tools in there, but keep it simple. Look in the upcycling tools guide for some links, just to see. You don't have to use the links, but just to see the sort of things you need, and you don't need to spend a lot. Yes, the hairdresser's stool. I'll show you that also for anybody who wants to be wheeling about. Oh, let's just get rid of that one. Hang on. Hi. Getting used to the technology. I love this. Putting the comments up. Yes, these are very useful. I find it more useful for probably painting and designing, but certainly when we come to the touching up stage, there's always jokes with me. When we come to the touching up stage, which is very sort of intricate, and this is also a good thing to have. It's very comfortable. It helps, and you can also get things that you can move your furniture up and down on, which does help your back. Yes, hairdresser stool. I think mine was only about 23 quid, which is very handy. So these things are helpful. Also, while I'm at it, I will mention, seeing as you're all being so helpful with the info, is these mats. So these are just really cheap ones. You've probably seen them with the grid-like pattern on, which are probably the garage floor type ones. You can get even the play mats. Maybe it's got leftover ones that the kids have trashed, the brightly coloured ones. These are just cheap ones from Aldi. they fit together. But obviously these are great for when you've got to get down on the floor, you've got dirty things that you need to work on. So they're very handy to have wherever you're working. Yes. Fabulous. And don't forget, dirty clothes that you don't mind getting messed up. Definitely. And it's probably also sensible to wear some shoes when you're working with your furniture. If you drop a drawer on your toes, in your slippers, that would be probably my advice. No sandals or flip-flops, because it's not really the weather, is it? So, okay. Right, go to it. Whatever you're working on today, whether it's this project or whether you're working, or going back to the kids. And I will see you in the group. And I'll pop the links up for next week. It'll be the same time next week. The Thursday one, feel free to come on to that if you've got any questions. And if you're watching on catch up, please just add any questions that you want to have answered as well, and I'll get back to you. And let's do it. Let's get cracking. I will see you very soon. Take care. Bye for now.